Hello, we're meeting with Art Hedberg today. Art Hedberg is an individual who has been involved in the Democratic Party for approximately 50 years. After graduating from the University of Iowa Law School in 1954, he came to Des Moines to practice law. He became interested in politics a short time after that. He was the young lawyer, chairman of the Young Lawyers here in Polk County initially, and then served as chairman of the Young Democrats for the whole state after that. He was first elected as Polk County Chair in 1962 and served in that capacity through 1968. Art has also had the privilege of being a delegate to the National Convention in 1964, 1968, and also in 1980. He's been involved in the State Central Committee as a representative from our area, and we're honored today to ask him a few questions about his recollections of Democratic Party politics. Welcome.
Thank you.
When did you first become interested in politics, though, just as a young man?
Probably, well, my dad was a staunch Democrat. I got kind of a funny story to tell about him. He had a pride in his lawn, the same house that I'm talking about where I grew up. And he had a neighbor who was a Republican, and he was walking up the street to go to the streetcar every morning, and he saw my dad digging up the yard with a spading fork. And he said, "Hedberg, what are you doing?" He says, I'm digging potatoes. It looks like we're going to elect a Republican, and I want something to eat. He says, "But I'll give you some too." My family were, my uncles were in the labor movement, and there again, except for one, he was a Republican. And he wasn't a blood relative. He was by marriage. He was my uncle. And wouldn't you know, my dad and he start yelling at each other about politics, and the rest of the people have to move out of the house so it gets so rough and ready. But so I guess it's in my DNA.
So you've always been a Democrat, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I've never voted for a Republican yet, nor have I ever split my ticket.
When you first came here to Des Moines in the mid-50s, that was seen as a transition period for the Democratic Party here in Polk County. What did you see as part of that transition, changing from a Republican county to a Democratic county? What brought that about?
Well, I think the GI Bill did, to make a short answer, because what happened, we had a bunch of young progressive people who went to Brock University, and they formed a Young Democrat Club. And Lex Hawkins, Dick Pennicker, and Neil Smith were all part of that club. I can remember going to my first caucus, and it was at the Fort Des Moines Hotel, and Jake Moore was the head of it. It was my first and only caucus. We all caucused a room of about 300 people in the Hotel Fort Des Moines, because that's where he had his headquarters.
Neil Smith also mentioned the GI Bill was an important thing, just as you did. Was the GI Bill important because it brought you together at college with other good Democrats, or was there something more to the GI Bill besides that made a difference in bringing the Democrats?
Well, you know, it put together people in the university that were Democrats. You know, you had to be a Republican, you had to have a rich dad to get a college education. It was good for everything. There was more scientists, more doctors, more lawyers, and you stopped to think about, well, some people question the lawyers, but stop to think about where we would be without the engineers that developed following that GI Bill. So it was the greatest thing that ever happened as far as I could see.
In 1962, you took over as the county chair, and it was an important election because you were able to elect a Democratic governor, Harold Hughes. Tell me what you remember about that election as your first election as chair. Was there anything in particular that sticks out in your mind?
No, but the next one I don't remember well, because
1964.
Yeah. We got 40,000 votes more than the Republicans in Polk County. And that was a substantial.
Huge margin.
Huge margin. Especially because he only had a 30,000 vote majority in the whole state.
Yes.
I mean, you know, but for the Polk County, he wouldn't have won, okay?
Yeah.
And so I remember that as my proudest achievement as a county chair.
Right, and that was the year that we pretty much took over both houses of the legislature as well, right?
So we eventually had every legislator and every courthouse, or everybody in the courthouse was Democrat. There wasn't an office in Polk County that wasn't filled with Democrats. So we had a great years though.
But you had a chance to be a delegate to the 1968 convention in Chicago.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember anything that was particularly significant about that convention?
Well, yeah, not as vivid as a lot of people, but of course that was where they rioted at Chicago Park, which is right outside of the convention center. Well, my friend Chuck Garrett is another good, hard-working Democrat. Decided to take a walk up through old Chicago, and of course we were visiting every bar as we went up, and our wives we came back, and as we came back, we wondered what we were going to tell our wives because we were pretty late, you know.
Yeah.
And we were afraid they might be a little worried about us. Well, they were, because what happened, that's when they rioted in the park, you know. Well, when we got by there, they hauled everybody to jail that was around, I guess. There wasn't anything there, but it looked like a cyclone had hit the park.
So in 1980, you had a chance to go to another Democratic convention. I want to ask you about that, and then I'm going to ask you a few general questions about the Democratic Party. You went there in 1980. Were you a Kennedy or a Carter delegate?
I was Kennedy, Ted Kennedy.
And that was in New York City?
Yeah. My wife took a picture of me and showed my bald head. Wouldn't you know, I'd lost most of my hair at that. I lost quite a bit of my hair at that point. That's the most other thing I can remember about that. But it was a good convention. Ted Kennedy gave a great speech. And, of course, Jimmy Carter got the delegates, so we lost the election as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.